It was an October evening. I was coming home. After 8 long years, Charlotte welcomed me with a light rain. Cold wind swept through the empty streets. I dragged my old suitcase down a narrow alley. Street lights cast a pale yellow glow on the wet pavement. In my hand was just one invitation. Tomorrow I'd be leading an inspection team for Helix Dynamics' largest defense project, and they had no idea. Not Helix, not my family. They still thought I was a dropout, a runaway from the pressure of an MBA, an anonymous soldier in the army. To them, I was no better than Jason, my brother, Helix's chief technology officer, the family's shining star, mom's pride and joy, dad's favorite bragging point, and me. I was the disobedient daughter. But tomorrow, that would change. Tomorrow, they'd have to see me differently. I pulled my suitcase up the porch steps. The old door was still there. I rang the bell. Its chime echoed through the rain. The door creaked open. Mom stood there, looked me up and down. No smile, no hug. She just said, "Your father's out back. Jason's coming home soon." Then turned and walked away. I rolled my suitcase inside. The house hadn't changed. Jason's photos filled the living room. Awards, certificates, photos of him with Helix's CEO. No pictures of me, as if I'd never existed. I walked up to my old room. The single bed was still there. Faded blue striped curtains, dust-covered bookshelf. I opened my suitcase, took out my freshly pressed uniform. The colonel's insignia gleamed under the lamp. I ran my fingers over it, not to show off, but to remind myself. Tomorrow, I wouldn't be the girl they used to dismiss. I'd be Colonel Rachel Harper, lead inspector for Project Sentinel X. I hung the uniform in the closet. Headed downstairs? The sound of a lawnmower hummed from the backyard. I stepped outside. Dad was pushing the mower, his shirt soaked with sweat. He saw me, turned off the engine. No hello, just asked, "How long are you staying?" I replied, "Long enough to do what I need." That night, we had our first family dinner in years. Mom made Jason's favorites: honey roasted chicken, butter mashed potatoes, golden cornbread. She kept talking about Jason, his new project, how the Helix CEO had personally promoted him. No one asked about me. No one mentioned the army, as if the past 7 years were just gossip. I ate in silence. Nicole, my cousin, had just flown in from New York. She raised her glass to Jason. He walked in like a star. Tailored suit, Helix logo on his chest. Mom rushed to greet him, wrapped him in a tight hug. Dad stood to pat his shoulder. Nicole beamed. I held my glass of water. No one noticed. Mom raised her glass. A toast to Jason, CTO of Sentinel X. Applause. Jason spoke modestly. "I'm just lucky. The CEO trusts me. Sentinel X will reshape national defense." I kept eating. No one asked about my recent mission. Nicole glanced at me. "You used to command an anti-terror unit in Maryland, right?" I nodded. "That's right. 6 months of daily coordination." Mom cut in. "But now you're in logistics, right? Must be easier." I set my fork down. "Not easier. Just where I can make the biggest impact." Jason leaned back. "If you hadn't quit the MBA, you might be a star at Helix too." I looked him in the eye. I didn't quit. I chose to leave, and I've never regretted it. The table fell silent. Dad cleared his throat. "Anyway, Jason earned it. Sentinel X is Helix's boldest project." I smiled softly. "That's why it needs strict oversight." Mom frowned. "Oversight? What do you mean?" I folded my napkin. "Tomorrow, Colonel Rachel Harper, Department of Defense representative, will attend Helix's final review session." No one touched their food. The air grew thick. Jason blinked. "You're with the Department of Defense." I met his gaze. "Yes. And my team has reviewed every project file." Dad was stunned. "Why didn't you tell us?" "Because I don't need recognition. But I won't let my work be dismissed." Mom's mouth opened, but no words came. Nicole glanced around, like watching a slow-motion car crash. I stood. Thank you for dinner. Then left the dining room. Behind me, a heavy silence lingered. For the first time, they weren't just surprised, they were afraid, and this was only the beginning. The next morning, the air was still misty. I put on the uniform I'd prepared, fastened each brass button, straightened the collar. The colonel's insignia gleamed under the light. I placed the hat on my head, looked at myself in the mirror, not out of pride, but as a reminder. Today, I wasn't here for myself. I represented my entire team, thousands of soldiers counting on us, those who'd been underestimated, like me. The military car arrived at the gate. Nicole watched from the window. She didn't say a word, but her eyes were warm, a feeling I hadn't felt here in a long time. The car rolled toward downtown. Helix Dynamics headquarters came into view, a massive glass structure shaped like an L, shining bright in the innovation district. I stepped out. All eyes turned toward me. A female colonel, at this age, not something they saw every day. I entered the lobby, presented my ID. The receptionist hesitated. Colonel Rachel Harper, Department of Defense. The elevator took me to the third floor. The main conference room was packed. Engineers, lawyers, defense consultants, military leadership. Everyone was there. Jason was presenting in front of a large screen. His voice was steady, confident. He was explaining Sentinel-X's tactical response module, data charts, dynamic simulations. I entered just as he spoke. CEO Veronica Clark sat at the head table. She noticed me, immediately stood, walked over, extended her hand. Welcome, Colonel Harper. We're honored to have you here. I smiled. Glad to be here. Jason saw me, like spotting a system glitch. My father sat in the second row, frozen, eyes wide. My mother was there too, standing in the back, looking confused. Nicole sat beside her, quietly observing. The presentation continued. I sat in the front row, flipped through the documents, took notes carefully. When Jason reached the threat verification protocol, I raised my hand. Can you confirm the encryption phase of that algorithm? Which team handled it? Jason paused. Team A2, under my supervision. I replied, that algorithm was scrapped after draft 12. Latency exceeded the threshold. The room fell silent. Jason's face flushed. I stayed calm. This isn't to discredit anyone, but every line of code, every decision must serve our national defense. The session ran nearly 3 hours. I set down my pen. Preliminary findings will be delivered by the weekend. Approval or suspension will be decided by the Oversight Board. CEO Veronica nodded. We fully trust your process. I left the room, quietly, but this time, no one could ignore me. I was there, and they knew it. I sat in the car, looked at the gray sky. My phone buzzed. A message from Nicole. Dad and Jason want to meet you. Backyard. I didn't reply, but I drove home. That afternoon, golden sunlight bathed the old garden. The oak tree stood tall. The smell of damp grass, of familiar earth. Childhood memories flooded back. Dad stood by the stone table. Jason leaned against a wooden post. Mom sat on the bench, crumpling a tissue in her hand. I walked over. Silent. No one spoke. Jason broke the silence. Is this payback? I looked straight at him. No. He raised an eyebrow. Then what is it? I replied. Because I'm good at this. Because soldiers rely on the decisions we make. Dad spoke up. I'm not doubting your abilities, but you should have told us. It felt like betrayal. I smiled softly. I've tried to prove my worth, but no one asked. Do you know what it feels like to be dismissed? And yasam chi you. Mom whispered, I just want you to have a stable life, less hardship. I answered, stability doesn't mean being invisible. Sometimes your gentle words hurt more than you know. Jason slammed the post. I've had to fight too. You think I haven't? I stepped closer. You think I haven't lost? 7 years. No holidays, no calls. No one asked how I was. I'm not angry. I just want to be heard. The three of them fell silent. I softened my voice. I didn't come back for revenge. I came because it's my duty. If I'm not objective, who will be? Dad sighed, looked at me for the first time, without disappointment. We were wrong. I'm sorry. Mom's eyes welled up. She couldn't speak. Jason stepped forward, hesitated, held out his hand. You've proven yourself. You don't have to fight alone anymore. I didn't shake his hand. I pulled him into a hug. I'm not here to win. I just want to be heard. 6 months later, fall came early that year. Golden leaves blanketed the streets. Washington, D.C. glowed in shades of red and gold. I lived in a small apartment, 8th floor, overlooking the Potomac River. These days, I was busy wrapping up the final phase of Sentinel X. The project was now fully operational. A young, energized team had taken over. I'd shifted to an advisory role, no longer hands-on. That evening, I received an invitation from West Point Military Academy. They asked me to speak at the graduation of a special unit, all female, focused on cyber warfare. Their very first class. I stared at the letter, moved, not for the recognition, but because this invitation was acknowledgement of the path I had walked. I texted Nicole, the only sister who had always believed in me. She called me right back. You have to accept, not just for yourself, but for the women coming after you. I smiled. I will. The morning of the speech, a light rain was falling. I stood backstage, looking out at the long rows of cadets, young faces, full of resolve. I saw myself 10 years ago. The announcer's voice rang out. Please welcome Colonel Rachel Harper. I stepped forward. Applause filled the room. I began with a simple line. Sometimes, we are the ones swimming upstream. But today, I stand here to tell you, it is the current that needs to change. The room erupted, but I didn't stop there. I shared my story, the years of being underestimated, the skeptical looks, the soft words that cut deep, the silent moments swallowing pain, cold days on the training fields, long nights coding line by line, and that moment when I walked into the Helix Dynamics boardroom as a colonel, no longer the girl they had dismissed. After the speech, a young cadet approached, eyes shining with determination. Colonel Harper, I almost gave up, but after hearing you, I won't. I gripped her hand. Don't live to prove anything. Live for what you believe in. That afternoon, I returned to my apartment. Nicole was waiting, holding 2 plane tickets. Seattle. You've never been. Have you? I looked at her, smiled. Let's go. Sometimes, family may not always understand us, but with the right companion, we keep moving forward. No need to look back. That winter, snow came earlier than usual. Washington, D.C. was coated in a thin layer of ice. I stood in the long hallway of the Pentagon, holding a warm cup of coffee. Through the frosted glass, the world outside was pure white. Sentinel X had reached its final stage. I was preparing to hand over the reins. Young officers, full of passion, would carry the mission forward. I felt at ease, but also a little empty. General Ross approached. She placed a hand on my shoulder. You've built something worthy of trust, but there's a whole world out there, waiting for your next mark. I smiled. No rush. I want to enjoy a bit of peace first. I wasn't leaving the military, but I chose to take a break, to write a new chapter. This time, I'd hold the pen myself. A few weeks later, I got a message from Jason. He invited me to visit Mobile. This time, it wasn't polite obligation, no trace of arrogance. I agreed. After all, we had both changed. The flight home was smooth. Jason met me at the airport. He didn't say much, but the look in his eyes was no longer smug. We had dinner together. He talked about new challenges, about learning to admit mistakes. I listened without judgment, just nodded. Finally, we were grown-ups. No need to win, only to understand. At home, Mom greeted me with a gentle smile. She didn't ask if I wore floral dresses, didn't tell me to eat more. She handed me a small box. Inside, a pair of black leather boots, fitting for a colonel's spirit. I looked at her, eyes stinging. "Thank you, Mom." She nodded softly, eyes sparkling. Dad had changed too, introducing me to his friends. "This is my daughter." She led a national defense AI project. I didn't feel proud. I felt at peace. Nicole had moved to DC for good. We lived together, like two teammates. One evening, walking by the lake, Nicole asked, "Do you ever think, if you'd been born in a different family, things might have been easier?" I stopped, thought for a moment. No, because without those years of doubt, I wouldn't know how strong I really am. I looked at her, and without you, no matter how strong I was, I couldn't have come this far. We said nothing more, just kept walking. The wind brushed through our hair, cold, but my heart was finally calm. 2 weeks later, a special letter arrived. From West Point's office, they invited me back, but this time, not just to speak. They wanted me to serve as an advisor for a new training program designed specifically for female officers, focused on national cyber defense, the first of its kind. I read the letter, thought long and hard. This wasn't just an honorary invitation. It was an opportunity to help women like I once was, the ones who were dismissed, undervalued, pushed toward a stable life. I called General Ross. "After hearing me out," she laughed, "I've been waiting for you to take that offer. We need more Rachel Harpers out there." I smiled. "I'll do my best." On my first day back at West Point, I stood on the training field, looking at the new cadets, young faces, bright eyes, looking at me with a mix of admiration and curiosity. I started with one question. How many of you have ever been told, "Women shouldn't do this job"? Shettesi Simentran. Nearly every hand went up. I nodded. So was I. But I'm standing here today because I didn't listen to them. The cadets laughed, a laughter tinged with truth. We began the training. Day by day, I saw myself in them, pushing forward, resilient, not quick to give up. One evening, a cadet approached me. "My name's Sophie. My family always said, a woman should focus on getting married, not learning this stuff. I almost gave up, but after hearing your story, I'm staying." I gripped her shoulder. "Remember, you don't have to prove anything to anyone. Just believe in yourself." We hugged. In that moment, I knew everything I'd been through had meaning. At the end of the course, I stood watching the cadets receive their certificates, confident, capable. I felt proud, not of my own success, but of helping shape a new generation. Returning to DC, Nicole met me at the airport. She smiled. "You've inspired so many people." I replied, "And you were the first. Who helped me get here?" Nicole hugged me. "We're a team." I smiled. "Yes, we're a team." The following spring, Washington, D.C. glowed under warm sunlight. I returned to my advisory role, no longer in direct command, but still closely following Sentinel X. One afternoon, Nicole sent me an article, headline bold and clear, "Colonel Harper, leading the cyber defense revolution." Below it, a photo of me, standing in the command room, eyes steady. I read it. Didn't feel pride, only peace. It was time to close one chapter and begin another. That evening, I called home. Mom answered, her voice gentle. "I just read the article about you. You make me so proud." I smiled. "Thank you, Mom." For the first time, no criticism, no forced advice, just pride. The next day, Dad called. "My daughter." I had that article framed, put it right in my office. "When people ask about you, I just point to it." I choked up. "Thank you, Dad." That weekend, I invited the family to DC for the first time. We sat around the table. No comparisons, no competition, just laughter. Mom shared old stories. Dad spoke of tough days at Helix. Jason was more open. He said, "You know, after all that happened, I learned to listen. I no longer think I'm above anyone." I looked at him, smiled. We all have things to learn. No one's perfect. We clinked glasses. Nicole sat beside me, winking. "You've come so far," I replied, "because you were there with me." That evening, the two of us walked around the lake. Nicole asked, "Any plans next?" I thought for a moment. Not sure yet, but one thing I do know. I'll keep writing my own story. It doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to be meaningful. And I'll keep moving forward, not waiting for promises of happiness. Nicole held my hand. "I'll always walk with you." A cool breeze swept by. We walked in silence, hearts light. No need to prove, no need to win, just to be ourselves. In this life, no one has the right to label you forever. You don't have to live to prove anything to anyone. Live for what you believe in. Stay persistent. Stay resilient. Stand strong on the path you've chosen. And when opportunity comes, step forward. No permission needed. If this story spoke to you, share your own. Let your voice be heard.